Let me know
All
when it's
right,
ready. All right,
you
we have.
ready?
All right, welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Unified Joint Development Authority of the Unified Government of Clarke County, Georgia, and the City of Winterville, starting at 5:30 on the dot. Um, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion
All
to approve
right,
the agenda.
Stephanie motions, Tim seconds. All right. I don't think further discussion is necessary. All those in favor of approving the agenda, raise your hand. All right, we got it. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Um, we actually, speaking of the devil, um,
Hello from the devil.
yeah, we actually forgot to put on the agenda the approval of the minutes from our meeting, special call meeting in November.
I did add it to the one on Google Drive if we want to do that.
Well, well, the question is, Dan, can we approve minutes even though we tabled it last time? Can we approve them without them being officially on the agenda?
The rule is, and it's gotten tougher after a decision out of Clayton County where the commissioners did not put a salary increase for them on the agenda and changed it when they went into the meeting. The rule is that if the need to act on the item was A, unforeseen, and B, necessary, then the agenda can be amended at the meeting.
Okay. Well, I don't think that approving the minutes from November meets the criteria you just described. So we will have to not approve those until the next meeting we have. So we'll just stick with what we've got. So we have the minutes from um, January 3rd, our special called meeting. I actually took a look at them. And the only thing that I saw was that, wait, no, this is wrong one. This one we're not talking about. The only thing I found was misspelling of Dodd's last name. It's got two R's in Farrell.
I'll take that one on the chin.
All right.
I
Yeah.
motion to approve with that correction.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second? All right. Second. I see a couple seconds, so we'll give Kelly that one. All those in favor of approving the minutes with Dodd's name fixed? Opposed? All right. Motion passes.
Sorry, Dodd.
Yeah, it'll come up with the next one too. So when we do the next one. All right, moving on to new business. We have Sam Latimer here with us to go over give a presentation on the final report for the JDA audit. And being the son of a CPA, I can relate to what you're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to present the report that I presented draft form last month. So not any changes, but I'm going to go through. Feel free to stop me and ask any questions you have along the way.
Can I stop you right now?
Sure, certainly.
This is really a question for Dan, and it's very minor. The first paragraph of the report refers to the JDA as a component unit of the unified government of Athens-Clarke County. And the city of Winterville is not a component unit of the county. Am I nitpicking there in terms of that wording?
You know, auditors have strange ways of looking at things like that, having to do with whether your financial statements are consolidated with theirs or not. And Department of Community Affairs follows that also in terms of whether you're independent or dependent. Legally, we're not a department of either local government. We're an independent public body. But I think my answer to that is if this is intended to reflect consolidation at the local government level of the financial statements, then that's an audit matter, not a legal matter. If the auditor wants to do that, that's fine with me. If it's a misapprehension of our legal status, then it needs to be corrected.
Well, it didn't. Like I said, I'm being a nitpicking here, but the city of Winterville is not a component unit of the unified government.
Is it referring to the JDA being a component or the city?
Yes.
That's correct.
The
The-
JDA is a component unit of the Clark County government, which I don't believe is an accurate statement.
Of course, we believe that it is a component unit of the unified government due to its financial dependency on the um, government of Athens-Clarke County. It receives all of its financial support, and Dan is absolutely correct. This is more of an accounting term,
Okay.
and what financial reporting entity you belong in, and due to the nature of appointing a majority of board members and also the financial dependency would
Okay.
bring them into that financial reporting entity. Simply a reporting matter, not a legal matter.
Okay. That's fine.
Separate legal entity, but a financial reporting matter. So
Okay.
that's a very good question, though.
Well, I just was curious. Like I
Yeah.
said, nitpicking, but I just want to make sure the report was accurate.
Oh, absolutely. Great question.
Okay. I'm done. Go ahead, Sam.
Let me try to share my screen here. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope that okay. All right, so this is our audit report. I'm going to go through each page. I went ahead and highlighted items that I thought were important, but like I said, feel free to stop me along the way. So this is our report. This is the product of our procedures. Let me stop real quick, and I do want to thank all the help that we received from Elka and Stephanie. Your staff have done a wonderful job helping us. I know that Stephanie, you probably enjoyed not having to get email after email from me. So, like I said, thank you for what you did. Help us get this done. So, so like I said, we have audited these financial statements, and we consider them to be a component unit of the Athens-Clarke County, and this is for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021. And I just like to highlight in our letter here, the financials are your financial statements. You are responsible for those financial statements. As the auditor, we're responsible to go through and test on a test basis and opine on those statements, whether we think that they are materially correct. And so we've done that on government auditing standards. Government auditing standards are similar, but they're different than normal auditing standards in that they require that we do some additional testing on your compliance, internal control, those type of things. And so we have an additional letter in the back, and I'll go through that when we get there. And so getting down to the reason for this letter, and that's our opinion. And so in our opinion, the financials present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the authority as of June 30, 2021. And like I said, dealing with government auditing standards, you can see here I've got highlighted in accordance with government auditing standards. We also look at the internal control over financial reporting. We test compliance. We look at legal matters, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and any matters that we think would have a material effect on your financial statements. Now, we don't provide an opinion on internal control, but we do try to provide guidance and take a look at compliance and those type of things. So, and I'll go right along here. I'm going to skip the MD&A. That's really just a summary of your financial activities, but I'm going to go straight to the financial statements here, just like we did last time. So you see here, this is the statement of net position, and there's not a lot of items on the statement of net position. If you see, I've highlighted a few of the items that are the most important. Your notes receivable, we've broken those out into long-term and short-term, and so the short term, that $314,000 there, that's what you expect to receive within the next year. That cash right there, you've already loaned out that cash. So if you were to do the balance sheet now, you would have more notes receivable. But just as of this point in time, you had not loaned out every bit. But if you see, you've got that 314 and that 287, and that makes up the bulk of your balance sheet of your assets. And then
Sam, can I
taking
ask you a
total
question?
assets. Sure.
What is the $60,000 liability? What does that represent?
Those are payables for loans that are due out to that are due out to beneficiaries of the loans. They just had not been paid out yet.
Okay. All right.
So that's really just a timing issue. So you had decided to loan them the money, you just hadn't issued the money at that point yet.
As of the end of the fiscal year. Okay.
Yeah, it was
That's
like
correct.
4 of them happened on the very last day where we said we're going to give you the money, but it hadn't left the bank account yet.
Got it.
Yeah, and I believe those hit within the next
Day.
2 or 3 days. It may have been the very next day.
Okay.
Um,
All right. Thank you.
But looking at the statement of net position, one of the biggest numbers on here is your net position. That's taking total assets minus all of your liabilities, and so that is the net worth of the authority. So that $88,187. That's the total net worth of the authority as of June 30, 2021. And now we get to what we call the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. And so this is what you would call an income statement in a for-profit. You can see that you've received most of your income from Athens-Clarke County, about $2.6 million. And you've got some contract services there, but the bulk of your payments out were due for grant beneficiaries, and that's the $1.6 million that I've got highlighted there. So if you take all that together, you end up with the same number, which was your net position, that 888,187.
That 1.6 million is a combination of grants and revolving loans, correct?
Well, the loans end up on the balance sheet because they're due back to the authority. Those payments to others, that is the grants that you gave away.
Oh, that's right. You're right. You're right. Never mind.
Mm-hmm. And moving along here. And so I'm going to move to the notes. I'm skipping through some of the significant accounting policies. I'll try not to bore you with a lot of that, but if you had a question on how we treated something, we outlined the programs there, but basically any accounting treatment, how we presented those. But I'll get to really the bulk of the information that's really most important to you guys. So we detailed in note 4 the notes receivable. You can see you got a total receivable of $100,000, excuse me, and then we've estimated that 104 of those may be uncollectible. We don't know that; that's just an estimate. But we have a net of 601,159, and then if you take away that current portion, that's the part you expect to receive in 1 year. 314, you end up with your non-current portion of $287,000. And this schedule here, this outlines the 705, the total amount of principal that's due to the authority. And you can see that we like to break that out and show how much you'll receive each year. So that it give you, that's good for budgeting and seeing into the future about how you may receive your cash in the future. One thing that I like to point out in the financials are risk and uncertainties. And so we've done, I still like to outline COVID-19. It still presents an uncertainty when it comes to financial matters. As you probably know, you probably all are aware of supply issues, employment issues, inflation issues. So we are still very much feeling the effects of COVID. Also, concentration of revenue. You did receive 100% of your revenue from the unified government, Athens-Clarke County. So if that was to go away, that would make your financial condition a lot more difficult. And so we just like to point out that you're not very diversified in your revenues because it all comes from the same source. And then I like to point out, this is our last letter here. And so this is our report on internal control over financial reporting, compliance. This is that governmental auditing standard report that I spoke about earlier. And so here we look at internal control over financial reporting. And we would like to look at your processes and see if we can help and see if we see any deficiencies in those processes. Well, this year we did note one deficiency, and that was that you just don't have enough people that were doing the financial duties, because you're really just don't have enough staff. And so we like to see those financial duties split up and segregated between others. And so we issue this just to let you know that is an issue. And so we recommend that you try to segregate those. One way to get around that is you can mitigate some of that risk with additional supervision. And so we told management about this finding, and they've already come up with a plan, and they've come up with some additional supervision and check signing measures to try to mitigate some of those risks. And that's not saying that we found anything wrong or that we thought anything was wrong. We would note that here if we did, but we just wanted to make you aware of that, and that management has already responded and come up with some additional policies and procedures to try to mitigate some of that segregation of duties risk. And that is the end of my report. And so I am happy to field any questions, anything you may have about the audit. Like I said, I'm very much appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys. You got a great mission here, great people, and Russian and Company appreciates the opportunity to work with the authority.
We appreciate your work on behalf of the JDA.
Well, thank you very much.
Does the board need to approve the receipt of this report through any motion, or is it just a matter of asking questions of him? Dan, do we have to?
Normally, the board would approve the financials. There's a difference of opinion about it, but I think that it is good for the board to approve because you're approving line items, you're approving expenditures, and it's good to have a record that has been accepted by the board.
So the motion would be that we would approve the annual financial report as presented by Sam Latimer.
As presented, exactly.
Okay. All right, I will put forth that motion. Do we have a second for that?
Okay.
Dodd got his hands up first. All right, any further discussion, questions you have of Sam, or further discussion of the motion at hand? Don't hear any, don't see any. So I'd like to call the question. All those in favor of approving the annual financial report, raise your hand. All opposed? All right, we have accepted your report. Thank you very much, Sam, for your efforts.
Thank you very much. And just if you have a question throughout the year, feel free to contact me if you need to or anything. Don't want to be that person that you just see once a year. So if you need anything, feel free to contact me.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you all so much. Y'all have a great evening.
Bye.
You too.
Bye.
Take care. The next agenda item is to review and discuss some loan debt collection services. It looks like we had 4 companies. Only one provided a proposal. I didn't see the brochure, but about the second one. But basically, we need to put forth a motion to choose one of these debt collection services. Carter and Young, Collection Service of Athens, Elmore Collection, and Penn Credit. I read through the Collection Services of Athens. I would like to put forth the motion that we hire the Collection Services of Athens with their stated 25% collection, or 50 if they need to file in legal things as our collection service. Is there a second to that?
I
Go to
feel we
me.
need to talk about them before we decide.
Well, usually we have to have a motion that we can talk about.
Why don't we motion to discuss the firms?
All right. There's a motion to discuss these data collection services. Is there a second to that? All right. Yeah, Erica got the second on that. All right. Let's start the discussion.
Well, I'll talk since I spoke with all of them. I'm not gonna share my screen because y'all have got these proposals, but Athens Collection Services, they were the first group that I contacted, and I was, hoping that they would be a good partner in it. But it took them about 3 weeks to get back to me, and I got the runaround multiple times. And
Okay.
then the information they won't do credit reporting. They don't do a lot of things. They basically make some phone calls, send some letters, and then if you want to file a lawsuit, they'll do it and charge you more. It's not a very robust service. But the company Carter and Young, that guy actually called me, and we had about an hour-long discussion about, their processes. They are the most expensive. They're the ones that I think are 33%
Correct.
for regular and 40% with legal filings. But they take more of a humane approach. They kind of layer on the pressure as needed. And the reason I like that, well, is we got an email this week. I did not include this in the documents because I didn't want to expose the person's name, but a company is saying that COVID is really still affecting her industry. I can't validate that. I'm just taking her at her word. And she feels she feels like the county did a good thing by making these emergency loans, but they were emergency loans, meaning there was an emergency and her emergency hasn't ended. And she's upset that we're not waiting until everything's back to normal completely before we start applying pressure for payback. Now, I say that because this particular company can do some things like, hey, we get it. You're still having financial problems. We just want you to commit to paying something, even if it's not the full amount that you're supposed to pay. Pay $100 a month. Like, they will basically set up payment plans for them that go beyond ours. But by handing this over to them, we're not treating someone different than someone else. They're following professional protocols based on the individual circumstance. And that's why I like them. They also do the skip trace thing, and they do asset inventories. Well, where they'll tap into these people's bank account, look and see, do they even have any money? If they don't have money, then they could tell us quickly, we're probably not going to get the money back. But they can file credit reports on people that they feel could pay but won't pay. So like I said, they look at each one individually and apply what seems to be the best for that circumstance.
I know, Stephanie, you did all the interfacing with them. I read through the Collection Services of Athens brochure, and they seem to claim to be, follow humane approaches to collecting stuff, and they have, a system that you can go look at. They also do credit reporting. Was the only issue you had that didn't get back to you for 3 weeks? I mean,
Well, it
it
was that
seems
I
like
kept having to put like, well, you're just giving me lines. I need to know more about what you do. Like, it was just like, this is small potatoes for us. This isn't really what we make our money on. They didn't seem very interested in it.
okay.
This
Well,
other guy, though, was very interested because this is the kind of work they specialize in, is government work.
okay. That's fine. I mean, I read the brochure of the Collection Services of Athens, and I was impressed by it, on paper at least, not having an interface with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was not impressed with them at all. And like I
Okay.
said, they were the first ones I contacted because I was like, wouldn't that be great to have an Athens company? And I was hopeful, but I was disappointed.
Well, that's not a criteria for me, but any other discussion that people have about these? Does it sound like it's between Carter and Young and Collection Services? The other two are not even considered?
Well, Penn just doesn't do this. They just don't.
Oh, yeah.
Ilka and I
I
both
see
talked to
that.
them.
I see that's
And
not a good fit.
the other company, they have nothing in writing. He's like, we're word of mouth only. We don't put things in writing. I mean, I was just like, ooh, that doesn't sound good to me.
Right. Okay.
I will
But I've
say
done
that
business like that since I was mowing lawns for a living, but
Stephanie, if we do decide to vote on this tonight, I will be abstaining because I personally was not on board with the idea of doing collections at this point. So I actually agree with whoever reached out to you. Like, I think that the presumption was that we would wait until they were at an established point, or at least there was a point of no longer being in crisis. I respect that some people haven't gotten back to us, but I don't see it as a problem for us yet. So personally, I will just be stepping out. If we decide to vote on this, though, I would prefer us to just delay this.
Yes, I've torn feelings about it, but it is public money. And if 80% of the people were saying, oh my God, COVID's not over, business is not back to normal, I might be thinking differently. But this is one out of all of our loans that said COVID's not back to normal for her. Now, her business is online. So that makes me wonder, I don't know what's going on, but there's more to the picture than is being conveyed. We do have, as y'all know that I sent it out, was $147,000 of loans that are now in arrears. A few of those have done deferments, but they're already behind again. There's just a natural number of businesses that maybe aren't run as good as they could be. Maybe they're not capitalized well. Who knows what could go on? And there's a penalty for taking loans that you don't pay.
Hey, can I just address Tim's concerns for a moment?
Yeah.
So
Hello. Oh, we lost Erica.
I wish we could just say, let's just let it slide.
yeah, I think we're.
I could do that with my taxes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys hear me now? Am
Yes.
I back?
Yeah, you're back.
I feel like we took this money.
You're breaking
You're
up.
breaking up, Erica. You're breaking up.
Erica, you
set
might
up-
turn your video off and we'll be able to hear you better.
Terms these business
Yeah,
is
Erica,
agreed
you turn off your video
them.
and
And we
use audio.
have to do. I'm so sorry. Okay, hang on.
Can't. All right, now speak.
Is this better? Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
we can hear you so far.
Okay,
So far,
good.
yeah.
I went outside. Okay. So, yeah, I feel like, we didn't, the conditions of the loan weren't based on how long the emergency lasted. The conditions were based on, here's a time frame, here's the grace period, here's when the payments will start. And everybody agreed to that. And then we gave them the deferment that also had conditions. And I kind of feel like this is public money. And so we have to take some action. Now, if we hand it off to a collection agency and we feel comfortable with the methods of the agency, then we just put it in their hands. And if they can't collect it, they can't collect it. But we are obligated to make the effort to compel these people to pay back. We don't know that anything's ever going to get back to normal. That was never a condition of repayment. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Anybody else have thought? The motion is just to discuss the collection services. Anybody else want to chime in?
Tim, I would like to say one thing. What if collections meant only seeking out to find out if someone can pay it back? Like, there are going to be some people that can't, and that's why we have that write-off, the estimate of write-offs. Every loan program has some degree of that. This woman may, in fact, not be able to pay it back. He may do all his investigatory work and find out she can't and say, y'all need to write this one off. So we can decide to do collections in every way that we want to without credit reporting, which seems to be what she's most worried about, is that it could ruin her future credit. So we don't have to decide today that we're going to do credit reporting. We just have to decide today that we're going to hire a firm that can address collections. And at another point, he may say the only way to get this money back is credit reporting. And y'all need to decide if you want to do that. So does that change how you feel about it?
I definitely feel more comfortable with it. Yeah, thinking of it as simply trying to, as you put, investigate the situation. Yeah, the lack, because I thought Erica's point, sticking with her analogy, I think of people in a crisis will do anything to survive. You know, I think it's people might make decisions that they would maybe if they had not been so worried might have not have agreed to. And so I would feel that we aren't actually helping the community if we hunt them down for a commitment that they might have made in error. But I do like I appreciate the idea of just trying to establish how they are doing and just at least reconnecting with them and not necessarily hounding them about something that may or may not be in their control. So yeah, if we do that, I'd be much more comfortable with it. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay. Any other comments, discussion for this? I don't hear any. So Stephanie, I trust your judgment, frankly, in terms of, your interactions with these two companies. I would be comfortable going with Carter and Young as the collection agency based upon your input.
Mhm. Yeah.
Anybody else have?
There's probably more that like if we all say, if we motion and we approve that we're going to hire this company, there's more to like exploring. Okay, what does that mean? Do we is it just for this first round of loans? Do we renegotiate for the second round of loans? Is it a time period? Like I need to kind of flesh out what does their contract look like. But I'd like to be able to get to that point, and I think deciding that we would be interested in working with them officially is where we need to be so that I can get the contract terms, and then maybe we discuss the contract terms and make sure we're all comfortable with it in the next meeting.
So I'm hearing the motion at hand being that we would engage Carter and Young to see if about their services, and then we decide later, maybe in a special call meeting, exactly what we want to do.
Well, I think we have to approve the contract. I guess what I'm saying is let me talk to them, get a contract, and then we'll bring this contract maybe to a special called meeting and say, is everybody comfortable with this?
Okay. So
Does that sound fair, Dan?
It does.
So I motion that we approve Carter and Young to be our collections agency pending us negotiating a contract that we're satisfied with.
Okay. Do we have a second for that?
Second. A second.
All right. We've got Erica second. Any further discussion of this motion at hand? All right. Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of engaging Carter and Young as a potential collection agency and looking at their contract offerings, raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Nope. All right. Motion passes. The next agenda item is actually not an agenda item. I've been informed by council that we cannot include an attendance policy for the directors. It's not allowed. So that it's not even tableable. We cannot do the third new business item. We cannot impose attendance policies on anybody and kick them out if they haven't shown up. So
what about the requirement of the training, Dan?
That's a state law requirement.
And so what if someone just doesn't do it?
That's another story that goes back a long time. There've been working groups that I've sat in on for many years talking about whether there should be a sanction for that. And there is deliberately not, although there is shaming because you have to report who's trained and who's not. The thinking is that, particularly with rural communities, you'd have folks that aren't training, have not gone through the training, then you'd have the project of a lifetime, and all of a sudden they couldn't do anything because first everybody would have to go to training. So it's a combination of peer pressure and the hanging over every authority's head is that one day DCL wake up and say, well, if you're not in good standing, you can't get grant, your parent local government can't get grants and that sort of thing. But so far that's not happened. But it is a legal requirement that you have the training, whereas also on the state level, authorities are creatures of state law. They're not creature of a local ordinance or home rule or anything like that. So you cannot conflict with state law. And if the appointing authority, which are the two local governments, cannot remove a director, and they cannot, then certainly the board can't.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like this whole idea that was brought up as an agenda item is moot. I don't,
Well, you did discuss it, so that's something.
well, I know. And, you know, I brought this up to Dan, you know, if we have one member who doesn't attend meetings and we have a decision as a 3-3 split, we don't have a tiebreaker if one person is absent from the, it may not ever happen. We tend to think pretty closely in general. So it's not likely to happen, but it's kind of hamstrung if you have one person who doesn't show up and you have 3 people in favor of something and 3 people against it, and there's no way to get a fourth. I guess Dan said the only other thing is you could amend to have an 8th member in case you have somebody who doesn't show up. That way you have a tie-breaking vote. But at this
Then you have a
point,
quorum problem.
well, I know. I think we've discussed it, and there's nothing we can do about it according to state law. So I think we should just let it go, for, at least as a thing that the board can do.
I would like to ask Kelly about the rumors that I've been hearing that there's discussion about paying authority and board members. Is that going down the toilet, or is that really a thing?
That could become something, and I expect sometime this calendar year, the commission is going to take up that question as to what the preferred compensation is for board and authority members. There are a couple that historically have received some compensation, the planning commission most notably, but
Tax commission.
it's not imminent at all.
Because I noticed that like the tax commission has that, but you don't get paid if you don't come to the meetings.
Well, yeah, that's a few of the discussion. It's not really on the
I
agenda
know.
right now. Dan?
If it's not on the agenda, I don't have to say anything, but if you want to pursue it, I need to.
Yeah, we're not going to pursue. I mean, there's nothing
No.
to pursue.
No, I don't want to pursue it. I like I said, this is a moot point. I think we should move on to the next item on the list, which is the treasurer's report.
Well, you've all seen it.
I have.
If you have questions, I'm happy to answer it, but there's no need rehashing it unless anybody has questions.
I'm fine with it as is. Okay. I don't think we need to, I guess we can take a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Also move that. Is there a second? All right, Dodd. Sorry, his hand go up. All those in favor of approving the treasurer's report, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
What did you say, Erica? I didn't hear you.
Aye.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, since we can't see you, we'll take your verbal on that. All right, it's been approved. Council report, Dan. One thing I do want to know is where do we stand with regard to the Ilka, help me here with the
If you like, Mr. Chairman, I can review the bidding a little bit. You will recall that we've approved participation in a food bank project.
correct. That's what I was referring to. Yes.
Yeah, it was
Can you
spurred
give
by.
Can you give us a status update of where we are with that?
Yes, sir. So background is there's an $8.9 million state grant, which sourced with federal funds, plus a matching contribution by the food bank for a food bank project. Again, because of our legal system, projects like that are best done through development authorities. What the board has approved is an intergovernmental agreement with Athens-Clarke to do that. There are not a plethora, but a couple of other agreements involved. And one of them is a memorandum of agreement between the JDA and the food bank. And the other is an MOU, really an amendment of an MOU that's already in place, which is a tri-party agreement between Athens-Clarke, the Northeast Georgia Regional Commission, and the food bank. DCA, of course, is the spider in the middle of the web with all this, because that's where the money comes from. The contracts, I believe, at least our MOA is with the food bank is final. I mean, I sometimes get last minute comments and did in December, but I think that's done, and I don't expect any more. So the contract, and Ilka, you sent David next to the final version of the contract, I believe. You've seen it. It's a little
Mm,
different. From
did
what,
you? Okay, I'll look again.
all right, it's a little different from what the board approved, but you're agreeing to changes was authorized, and the changes are not
I-
bad changes. They're okay.
Right.
The
Yeah.
MOA,
Go ahead.
the MOA is stable, I believe. The MOU, I'm not in the middle of. I think it's stable, but the hangup there has been with DCA, because one of the concepts that was introduced was a construction manager, really an owner's representative. And Athens-Clarke is not the owner, but that's the way it's written. So it's a representative of Athens-Clarke, which I think is a good idea. Athens-Clarke wanted to use the engineering firm that they've used before, which was competitively selected. And the question was whether DCA would accept that method or whether the contract would have to be recompeted. And while I was on the phone with Judd Drake today, the county attorney, we got an email in, and it has to be recompeted. So at least now we know what we have to do. That process will have to work its course. And when it's done, there will be a virtual signing at which, at the same time, the MOU as amended, or the amendment to the MOU, the MOA, and the IGA will all be signed. And that's, as Winston Churchill said, that's not even the end. It's not the beginning of the end, but it's the end of the beginning. At that point, we start the actual project. We're required promptly after the execution of our MOA to negotiate and enter into a lease of the to-be constructed building with the food bank. We also have to actually buy the land on which the building will stand. So there's a purchase and sale agreement. There is a lease. While that's going on, the Athens-Clarke, which thank God is taking the lead in the construction and the architect work, will be running the traps. The construction has to be competed. So there'll be a competition in line with the Georgia Local Government Public Works construction law. And I don't know whether they'll do that with the architect, but the way things are going, I wouldn't be surprised. So those two contracts will have to be negotiated and executed. There are some specific provisions in the MOA which have to be included, number one. Number two, I have to continue my hawk-like vigil to make sure that the JDA doesn't actually end up with any obligations or liabilities. So I'll have to touch that process. And Judd and I talked about that today, and he's going to get me in the loop on that. But that hasn't kicked off yet. And where we are is coming full circle back to we're waiting for a little bit more competition and procurement to take place. Then there will be a contract signing, and then the project will actually be launched. And I don't have a time frame for that.
Is there anything that JD needs to do other than what we've already agreed to in our last meeting?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. So it's just a matter of waiting for all these things to line up for the next step.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to talk with Judd today, to make sure I wasn't supposed to be doing anything. So
Okay.
We're all good for now.
All right. That's what I
We
want.
get all the glory without any of the work.
There you go. Yeah, it's got our
Well,
name on it.
there'll be some work done before it's all over.
I'm sure there will be. All right. Is there anything else that you have, Dan, to share?
No, sir, that's it. Unless you'd like to hear about the Georgia General Assembly, I could go on for hours about that.
No, I'd rather not. Thank you. Ilka, do you have anything to report?
I just have one quick note is that we're doing some compliance, like monitoring on the back end from the CARES Act funds. And we're doing that for the JEDA and the Northeast Georgia Business Alliance. So David's in the loop, Stephanie helped me, and I've been looking through that and reviewing that.
Okay. All right. Well, according to this, our next meeting is our regular meeting on May 4th at 5:30. We'll decide how COVID is then, whether we virtualize it or meet in City Hall or whatever. So that'll be the next meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn? 70. All right. Second. Someone raise their hand. Dodd seconds. All right. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your hand or say aye, Erica.
I
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you, folks. We got
Good
comments we
seeing
need to.
everybody.